Hello?
Hello?
I think they like the show. They seem to like the show.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Those first 2 episodes are an interesting gut punch to me. Partly because, when the first season ended, I was going to do like 30 seconds of me fawning about the show, but I think that we'll just build that in as we go. When the first season ended, it was in such an interesting sort of peaceful place after starting off with Jimmy in such a kind of emergency situation at the beginning of the show. And it's kind of winding up like the dancing, and it feels very much like one of those endings that's like, okay, it's okay if this show is mercilessly not able to continue. It's okay because it's a good, and then the cliff, as someone pointed out to me, opposite of cliffhanger. So what did you see as the business that you needed to kind of get down to at the beginning of this season?
Well, I think it was important to us to acknowledge that if someone's going to color outside of the lines in therapy, that it was fine to have fun with things going well, but you also had to be really honest about things going poorly.
Yes.
And so we had to clean that part up, and we wanted to do it in a really fun way. But the other thing that I thought was true is that season 1 is very much about getting Jimmy out of the hole, right? Like, just get him to 0.
Yeah.
And there's something about that you feel like maybe you've reached a plateau, but my experience in life is that you handle like the immediate triage, but then you're left with the what now.
Yes.
And there's a lot of wreckage that he has to clean up. So we jumped right in. It's a really exciting season.
Yeah. I think they were excited to see you.
Yeah. How about that?
Thanks. Thank you for being nice about my face without a beard.
I will admit, I was shocked.
It's a shock for everyone. Also very disappointing to discover that women don't like me for my personality. Difficult period of time filming this. Very lonely.
I read, I think in Variety, that you were trying to talk him into appearing on the show. Is that accurate or no?
No, if I may, and then you take over because I'm very grateful to Jason. Bill had been like, do something in it, be in it, but it was probably going to be like just a funny one-off, maybe.
It's not that funny.
No. I was just going to do like a little, maybe a patient or someone, or like a romantic, just something funny, just to be in it. And then we'd already written this part, and then Jason called us into his trailer. You can say the rest. You're very kind.
I don't normally call people into my trailer. That's a real flex. It's a flex.
That sounds amazing.
Come to my trailer.
He rang his bell.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, but I think that I just said out loud what was the truth. I can't take credit for it. The truth is Brett was meant to play that part. And I knew that it was somebody that needed to be a reflection of Jimmy. And so I wanted a formidable actor. And because it is Jimmy looking at himself to some extent. You'll see as the season goes on. And Brett is an absolutely incredible actor. And yeah.
I didn't think you were going to say that. That's not why I went.
That's why I turned it over to me. Yeah, Jason, you handle this. The
Jason,
incredible
say
actor
the thing
part.
I wrote.
Say the incredible actor
thing
thing.
I wrote.
Yeah.
you get your card out that has all the things you're...
The thing that was going through my mind at the time was Roy Kent is a very powerful energy.
Agreed.
But I know as an actor what it's like. I was Marshall Erickson for 10 years. But, and that's a great thing. And I'm sure Roy Kent is a great thing. But one of the things when you're an actor and want to play a lot of different roles is I then had to really purposefully, when How I Met Your Mother ended, go about taking other parts that allowed me to break that association so that I could, stretch my muscles and do all the things I wanted to do. And a lot of it involved me writing parts for myself. And one of the things that I thought for Brett was like, one of the gifts of writing a show, which Brett created and write shrinking is that you get to stretch your muscles. And this is an opportunity to kind of break the association with Roy Kent in one fell swoop and like give that gift to yourself and show him what you got. And wait till you see him this season. It's like, it's an amazing performance.
Yep.
What a lovely man. Thank you.
You know, speaking of that, I assume that at least in the US, that when people come up to you and recognize you, that it is Roy Kent that they are going to talk to you about.
Yeah.
What is it when they come up to you? Is it mostly Marshall? Is it other things?
It sort of depends on the age of the person. There's a generation that is now like adults, which is really scary, where it's Muppets. Yeah, where they're like, I grew up watching Muppets, Mr. Segel. I hate it. Mr. Segel, man, oh, that's a whole new thing in my life. But yeah, it's How I Met Your Mother. It's Muppets. If they're like intellectual types, it might be End of the Tour. I've done and Freaks and Geeks. Yeah.
Freaks and Geeks.
Yeah.
If it was me, it would be Freaks and Geeks, I think.
Yeah, I've been a really, really lucky guy. I've gotten to do stuff that I really care about. You know, the few times I decided to do stuff I didn't care about, it had the effect of me realizing I didn't want to do that again. And so I try to just choose things that I know I'm going to feel good about if someone on the street says, that's the one I saw.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's interesting that you would mention Freaks and Geeks, because one of the things I was thinking as I watched this season is this is a really balanced season in terms of the fact that everybody has a lot going on.
Yeah.
Right? It's still kind of geographically it's centered on Jimmy.
Yeah.
In that these are all the people who are kind of orbiting around him, but it is really
That's because I'm
balanced.
physically the biggest.
Yeah, yeah. I felt
That's
just science.
Yeah.
That's just science.
I felt if we stood up, I would feel quite short. That's why I wore these shoes. So what I was going to ask you, one of the things I like about this ensemble is that they do things. It's a lot of them are people that I know, but they're not doing exactly the thing that I know them for doing. They're doing like a slight twist on it. And the reason it reminded me of Freaks and Geeks is that I think of that as a Paul Feig thing. It's one of the reasons I love Spy. I don't know if y'all love Spy, but one of the reasons I love Spy is everybody in Spy is doing something just a tiny bit different from what you think of them doing. So I'm curious about how you think about that ensemble and how to use them. Like my best example would be like, I've seen Ted McGinley be a million husbands, right? A million husbands.
Yeah.
But he's so good in this and so like different and like pointed in this, and also has like some rad dramatic acting this season.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well,
I've been very lucky to be in the position to write on a season 2 of things twice now. And writing a season 2 I love more. I think it's the best part. Because season 1, you're building the show, you don't know the actors yet, you don't know the tone until you've really made the whole thing. And then once the thing works and it's good, you've built the world. And then season 2 is fun, because you now, not only are you writing for these characters, but you're writing for these actors who you love. And Ted McGinley is a perfect example where in season 1, he was like the comedy assassin. You give him one line, you put him at the end of the scene, he'll say one line, he'll kill it, and he gets out. And he's really...
eat a dick, Pam?
Eat a dick, Pam. Get Ted in. Ted comes in, says, eat a dick, Pam, leaves. He's the best bit in the show. You know what I mean? Like, people make 300 TikToks of him. Like, you go, great. He's really great at that. But actually, Ted McGinley's a fantastic actor. And so it was quite... It's exciting to write for these people to go... In season 2, you'll see Ted continues to be hilariously funny, but we've given him some fucking emotional stuff, and he kills it. And I think he, as an actor, is so excited to go like, "Oh fuck, you're letting me do this?" It's like, yeah, man. And that's true with everyone. With Luke, you know, he hasn't had the chance to do really funny stuff. And like in episode 6, we give him like a huge comedy set piece that's like, he's so good. You know.
The truth of this cast, in my opinion, is that every one of them could be the lead in their own show, and any of the pairings could be an odd couple show. And that's like the brilliance of the episodes, I think, this season, is that you do these mix and match scenes where like, oh, I had no idea that Ted and Jessica were an odd couple. You know, it's really like exhilarating to be a part of.
Yeah, this is one of the things that we talked about on the podcast that I'm on when we talked about the show, is that as the first season went on, you started to see people in different pairs than the ones that you maybe saw at the very beginning of the season. So I do think people got that, you know, and I think everybody is grateful for the attention that you have brought to the unknown actor Harrison Ford.
Yeah. We really took a chance on that guy.
Yeah. But I mean, I haven't seen him do like outright comedy since like maybe Working Girl.
Yeah, and even that, there weren't like broad set comedy pieces. I think that actors in general have like parts of themselves they haven't gotten to show yet that they would like to be known. You know, it's like you sit at the dinner party and think like, well, if I had done that movie, I might have tried this. And there was a moment I remember, there was like the limits of our imagination of how to write for Harrison are at the beginning of season 1 are like, Jessica and I will do comedy around Harrison and he'll be grumpy. That's like what you can kind of imagine, right? And then this episode comes where Harrison is stoned at the party. And he's doing fucking comedy, and he got big laughs from the crew. And one of my happiest moments in my life is they yelled cut, he got big laughs from the crew, like smattering of applause, and he walked by me, and really quietly he whispered in my ear, I knew I was fucking funny.
That is amazing.
The best.
That is the best. That is the best. Is it, I mean, I feel like if it were me, I would ask a lot of Star Wars questions and make it very awkward. Is it hard not to ask Star Wars questions?
No, because I'm scared of him.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm not asking anything like that. No.
There you go. That makes sense. That makes sense. So, in terms of Jimmy's progress this season, one of the things that I very much like is the kind of slow progress of the relationship with Alice. And that I think this is maybe the relationship where I see most the thing that you were talking about at the beginning, which is like it's one thing to kind of fix the crisis, and then it's another thing to kind of address the longer term. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, do you remember Force Majeure by any chance,
Yes.
the movie? I feel like, for those of you who didn't see it, basically there's a avalanche on a mountain, and the father in a family, as opposed to trying to save his family, runs away. But they all survive, and so the movie is about them having to like keep on living knowing that the dad ran away when the thing happened, which is a great premise. I think that that's what happened with Jimmy and Alice. It's force majeure. The thing happened where your dad is supposed to protect you and be the one who says it's going to be okay, and he ran away, metaphorically. And so, yeah, he got himself to zero, and Alice said, you know, I'm glad you're okay. But there's still this thing hanging of like, how can she ever trust him again? How can she ever really think that's someone I can depend on if the shit really hits the fan? Because he wasn't. And so I think this season there's a lot of repair work there. This season our like true north is forgiveness. So you'll see that in all of its facets with people's storylines.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that I think makes this show similar to Ted Lasso in some ways is that they both have always struck me as shows that are about like the importance of decency for people who are in pain, you know? And I'm wondering kind of for you, what through lines you see kind of between the hearts of these two shows that you've worked on. I know obviously there are other ones.
What's the question?
Sorry.
What were you thinking about? What were you thinking about when she asked?
Well, I had an
It's totally fine.
I had an answer to what I thought the question was. Then I was like, no, she's talking about Ted Lasso. And
No. It's always.
I don't have a Ted Lasso.
Then you had to scramble.
Yeah.
No, it's always my fault. It's always my fault if the question is not clear. What connections do you see between, like thematically, between Shrinking and Ted Lasso?
I mean, well,
what are you thinking about right now? What are you thinking about?
You know what? I think I think it's clearly a dumb question.
No, it's fine. It's on me. It's on me. I can't. I think I was all prepped for shrinking talk, and now you bring that to Lasso, and I'm like, oh fuck. I'm now trying to remember what the themes. Look, they're both. You know, they both have Bill Lawrence as a connection.
Can I just say? Who's your favorite Muppet?
That's my question.
I was going to ask you both.
From real life interaction, and yes, that's a brag. I did Sesame Street. It was the best day of my life.
Yes.
And yeah, and on the day, my favorite was Cookie Monster.
Yeah.
Cookie Monster was fucking funny. Like I was really like shocked. Wasn't expecting.
That's a good pick.
Yeah,
I mean, he
thanks.
never eats the cookie. That's the amazing thing about him. The cookie just breaks up and flies around.
Yeah, he has a go.
Yeah.
That's why he keeps trying.
Who is your favorite Muppet?
Mine is by far Kermit. I feel like he was my first acting influence. I feel like that when you are young, Kermit is Tom Hanks. And Jimmy Stewart, he's the everyman.
Yes.
And so my whole acting style is built around that I am you.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I feel I must tell you that we polled the listeners of the podcast to ask them who their favorite Muppet was. Yeah. We got 18,000 votes. There were like 150 Muppets who were mentioned.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, you received votes.
Come on.
You received votes.
That's
Nice.
sweet.
You were disqualified.
I was?
Because you're not a Muppet.
Because of my human form.
Because of your human form. But you did receive votes.
Stupid
Yeah,
form.
damn
You
human form.
did receive votes. I to go back to shrinking.
I've
as
got the
we
answer
should.
to your question. You know, I think the reason I was frustrated by the question, it's not on you, it's on me, is because I sort of go, if I'm completely honest, I go, well, it's just sort of taste, I think. It's like that ultimately, generally, these are both shows about people, and if you're leaning towards people is optimistic, if they ultimately think that people are trying their best, and when people fuck up, it's usually not intentional, and they're all trying their best. I think that is a similarity between both shows, but I think that sort of is inherent in the writers of both shows. So that's why it's a difficult question, because it feels unconscious. That's just how we approach writing people.
Got it.
I
Makes sense? Is that fair?
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you for an excellent question. I'm sorry it took so
It's
long.
perfect.
Great
Perfect.
answer. I have an observation as a maybe more outside
Thank you.
presence. I think that both of those shows are unembarrassed of genuine emotion, of that this is what it feels like to be human, and it's clunky and it's cumbersome, and there are highs and there are lows, and I think that there's like a removal of the fear of being made fun of for your humanity in both of the shows. Like, it's okay to be weak, it's okay to cry, it's okay to laugh. That's what I respond to about both of the shows.
That's a much better answer, yeah.
No, I get it.
We
I get
fucking
it.
nailed this question.
Yeah, we're great.
I'm so sorry for the time it took to answer
Not
one
at
question.
not at all. Not at all. This
I'm really glad I chose the middle chair.
Do you know how bad it is when people have immediate answers to everything you ask them?
Yeah,
You know how boring it
we
is.
should have side questions to each question.
It is completely good. Another question. I did not spend a lot of time looking closely at the title sequence until in this season I did. In the first season I didn't. Can you talk a little bit about the title sequence with the maze?
It's great, that title sequence, isn't it? I mean, we can't take the credit. Someone very clever did that. But it's a maze, and there's people moving through it, and then the reveal is it's a brain.
Yeah. We're all
in
actually
it.
secretly represented throughout the maze. Yeah.
Yes. Who does your needle drops? Great needle drops.
Krista Miller.
Really?
Krista Miller, yep.
Liz.
That's right. Bill Lawrence's wife.
Yes.
And a talent in her own right in many ways. Does all the needle drops. She's an amazing, she loves music. She picks like perfect songs for the perfect moment, and yeah, she's great.
She has great taste.
She has great taste, and she
Great
keeps
taste.
these long lists of things she'll want to use in future episodes. That's great.
Yeah. I think it's the only show I know that has a very funny Sufjan Stevens joke in the first season.
Does she do the music for Lasso as well?
I think she did some of it, but
Right.
I also think Jason has a tremendous music taste. So I think an awful lot of it is Jason.
Nice.
If I was in
I was
charge,
trying to go back to your previous question.
No.
no. Well, the only thing I can take credit for, because I only have one musical taste, and it's Billy Joel, is the very first episode of Shrinking begins with "Angry Young Man," which was in the script. Thank you very much.
That is a favorite of mine as well.
Great.
So, trying to redeem myself.
Yeah, we
here.
got so much in common, you and me.
They're never gonna have me back. They're never.
No,
gonna have me
it's
back.
me that's not going to be invited back. Come on.
So, I felt like this season got a little more deeply into the kids, into the teenager stories.
Yeah.
Certainly Alice has a bunch of stuff going on. But one thing she has going on is kind of like weird teenager stuff.
Yeah.
That which is still going on even while she has these super serious.
Yeah, because she was robbed of that.
Yeah.
For season 1. She had to be Jimmy's mom. So for a year or 2 years, whatever that amount of time was, she didn't get to be a teenager. And so now she's like in compressed time dealing with all the clunky parts of being a teenager, sex and friends and feelings, stuff she had to put on the back burner.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think it's a sort of a refreshingly candid attitude about teenagers and sex. And I'm not going to sing. There's a little song. I'm not going to sing this song. No.
Sing it.
No,
Sing it.
I'm not going to.
Sing the song.
Okay. It goes, cheater, cheater, bitch, cheater, cheater, bitch. Cheater, cheater, bitch, cheater, cheater, bitch.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's better than that. And I'm not
No,
as
it's not
good
better
at
than
it
that.
as...
That's it.
I'm not as good at it as Harrison Ford.
That was great.
That was wonderful.
I like the fact that her life is complicated in ways other than Jimmy, because I think it helps kind of build her out a little bit. And it's always interesting to me to see her with Liz because so much of the story of the beginning of the first season, I watched the beginning of the first season again like a couple days ago. It's brutal.
Yeah.
It's so brutal. I forgot.
Yeah, well, one of the things that we talked about in the first season going in, which I think is fun and interesting, I'm interested in subverting genre, subverting image, and one of the things that I, in a weird stroke of self-awareness, but I have to write for myself a lot, I seem to have garnered a lot of goodwill and currency of like, he means well. And so what I said was, if this guy's having a breakdown, like, go for it. Push it hard, because I think, maybe it's just my face shape, but like, who knows? I mean, anyway, my character in that first episode, my daughter is asleep upstairs, and I'm outside with sex workers doing drugs and drunk and not driving her to school. And I'm like, I'm telling you, they will feel like, oh, I hope he gets better. So I'm really interested in I'm interested in using it, to whatever degree we have that built up. Like, let's spend it and let's see what we can do.
Yeah, for sure. What does your writing process look like in terms of, are you a dump it all out person? Are you a planner? Are you, what is your process like?
When I said how wonderful and lovely it is to write season 2, it's also a fucking nightmare because there's so many characters and they all need servicing and they all need... Listen, these actors, you know what I mean? They all need servicing one by one. They come to my trailer. You have to... But they...
Oh, Brad.
Yes, coming. So there's all that. but there's also trying to give everyone a full arc for the whole season, a full episode, moment, scene, story. there's so many characters to fit in, and you want to try and get it all within 30 minutes. So it takes months, and there's boards all over the room. And I always think these things, writers' rooms, is like a group therapy session. You sit around this table, you all stare at each other for 8 hours a day or more, and everyone just tells their stories. And at some point, it is a weird thing because you're not doing this cynically, but at some point someone will tell something really moving about their mum, and then someone will go, "We should use that," and you go, "Yeah, great, we should." And but it's sort of, that is why it's good, is because it comes from the heart, it comes from real stuff, real emotional places, and then I don't know, I'm making it sound like it is also chaos, and it takes a very long time. But with this season in particular, I don't want to sound. Can I use a serious reference, in my head? But this is very highfalutin.
No, let's go.
Well,
I sang the song.
The Wire, which is the greatest show ever, right?
Yeah.
The Wire, the way they talk about it, and I've read all the books on The Wire, I'm obsessed with it, is, they built the city of Baltimore. Season 1, they built the city. Then the second season, they add the docks. Then the third season, they add. And they said when they got to season 3, they could then start experimenting with the world. They built the world, now they could put an experiment into it that isn't from the real world, which was Amsterdam. And they were like, what happens if you put this in our world that we've built? And with season 2, the way I felt about it was we've built this world, it exists now. We know the players, we know their dynamics, everything. So if we take this idea of forgiveness, which is what it was always going to be about, and it's quite a simple idea, forgiveness, sounds simple. We all know we should all forgive, blah, blah, blah. But we go, well, what if you take the man who killed your wife, the man who killed the mother of the man who killed your mother, and we go, here you go, we put that in the whole world we've built. Now, how easy is the idea of forgiveness? And then you have 12 episodes to play, and it affects every character and all the worlds and all the things. And that's a very sort of rich thing thematically to place across 12 episodes. And that really helps, I think, because then you have a through line to hang on to that's meaty and fucking interesting, and you know what I mean?
The alternative title for this season is How I Killed Your Mother.
You've got to go now, that's it. You've got to go. You're not going to top that. Off you go.
Now see,
I did Colbert 2 hours ago.
Fuck.
they give you a handheld mic, and you don't even drop it at the moment that you
Darn
it. Wow. I was going to ask a kind of an industry question, which now feels very in poor taste, but I think one thing that a lot of people who write about and talk about television talk about is the enormous quantity of television that there is, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, a lot of really talented people that I know also talk about it feels like nobody wants to make anything. And I always am trying to pull together those threads in terms of especially if something is not, related to something that already exists, how hard it is to get original things made in the way that this show is original, that it does not come from anything. And I'm curious, I know you guys are both sort of people who always have kind of a lot going on. And I'm curious how you feel about...
You mean mentally? Go on, yeah.
Huh? Yeah, did not yet. I'm curious how you feel about that balance between, on the one hand, there seems to be some contracting in some areas of what people want to make, but at the same time, there's kind of a glut of, I think they wrote it up in the New York Times as mid-TV. And I'm curious what your thoughts are.
If I have a flaw in my career path, or maybe it's not a flaw. Oh.
They're done letting me ask the question.
Did you just ring your bell?
Yeah. I have not approached my career, and for me it works with a strong sense of strategy. I know it sounds funny, but I I let ideas lead the way. And it means that I write something good every 3 or 4 years. And that's cool with me. Like, I think of an idea, and then I know what that means if you decide to write it. It's like it's hard, because you spend a long time writing it, and then there's a period where you have to be a door-to-door salesman, and you go around and you say, please believe me. I thought of this is what you're saying metaphorically. I've thought of an idea on the couch, and I need $40 million to make it come true. And then you have to make it, you know? And so when I think of an idea, try pretty hard not to write it. And my experience is that the good ideas nag at you. And I wake up thinking about them, and sometimes I start dreaming about them, and then next thing you know, I'm like doing a kind of casual outline, and then that lives on my computer for a while, and then finally I realize this thing won't leave me alone, and then I write it, and for the most part, I then put my head down. This is where I think maybe I do have a strength. I put my head down and I say, I'm getting this fucking thing made. And I like figure it out, and if you close a door, I try to find another door. And so I like don't acknowledge the thing that you're talking about. I don't acknowledge if the business is expanding or contracting or if it's better on TV or better as a movie. The fucking idea's in charge. That's my job. I'm an artist. It took me forever to be able to say that. But I'm not an agent or a strategist. I think of an idea and I like let it. My job is to make it real. It's alchemy. You think, yeah.
They like alchemy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's magic. You think of an idea and then 5 years later you can hold it.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree on all of this. In terms of the industry, I don't know. Look, the thing that always annoys me, but I think it's been the same issue for 100 years, is that something like Ted Lasso happens, and Ted Lasso's kind of a miracle. Like, none of us thought it would be watched. Like, we really didn't. That isn't being humble. Like, Apple TV wasn't a thing. It didn't exist. You know, it was like, no one's going to watch this. So the fact that it was watched and loved is huge and so unusual. But the lesson from that is there is no lesson. It's like magic. It's like winning the lottery. You know, you can't go. So then people go, well, we need to make more Ted Lassos. It's like, you can't. It was an original thing. And then something like Baby Reindeer hits, which is an incredible show and so unique and so personal and such a vision. And now there'll be meetings where people go, we need it to be more Baby Reindeer. And you go, but that isn't why Baby Reindeer hit. It hit because it was fucking its own thing, and it will always be the thing that is its own thing. And studios execs, you know, people that ask for stuff to be more like other stuff, are always, and I say this with love to the people who pay my bills, wrong.
Well, and I think people can tell, right?
Yeah.
Like if you watch television, you see the wave of like, there was the post-Friends wave and the post, you know, there will be this post-Baby Reindeer wave, and there was a post-Mad Men wave, and those people know. They see them, and it becomes less interesting. Like the Mad Men-ish shows after Mad Men were not as interesting as Mad Men.
Yeah.
Like that's just, you know, I don't know. I don't think it's like we need a bunch of shows about soccer, you know? I don't think that was the lesson. Anyway. 2, Mr. Segel.
That's
it
me.
says Mr. Segel.
Oh, God, yeah.
I did not make that up.
Yeah.
Are you a Muppet or a man? From
that's
Grace
sweet.
and Camilla, we're Muppets.
I think I'm definitely a heavy mix of both, you know?
Yeah.
I have a sense of childlike wonder that has not gone away. I mean, I really think, like, I think people are, for the most part, good. And the only thing that, like, you become encumbered by is fear of being made fun of. And besides that, I think we're all, like, experiencing the world probably pretty similarly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As I said, you got votes.
Yeah, cool.
How do you think comedy can help or hinder the exploration of grief and loss? That's a great question. I should have asked that.
I talked about this in season 1, and I kept getting in trouble for it. But I'm going to say it again, because I mean it. I think that comedy is how we survive, and I think it is proven in. There is a film that I have referenced before called For Sama, and it is a documentary film, and it is filmed by people in a war zone who've just had a baby, and it has horrific scenes in it of terrible, terrible things happening. But within this film that is set over a few months or a year, there's a secret wedding, there's laughter, there's hiding together, there's kissing, there's romance. It's one of the most romantic films I've ever seen, and it is set in the worst circumstances a human being can endure. And I go, that's real, that's life. Whenever I watch a drama that doesn't have humor in it, I'm like, you haven't been watching life. That's bad art. Yeah. People fucking make jokes when it's the heaviest time. Like, that's real. That's how we survive. And so I think people laugh at a funeral, you know what I mean? Like, it's what we do, and it's how we survive. So I don't see the world any other way.
You should see Brett at a funeral. It's so uncomfortable.
I shouldn't point and laugh, but I do.
Little personal, you can answer or not. How much of your own experiences with grief and loss do you bring into your work on this show?
Something that's funny is when we did press, you must have had this person because we were in different rooms, and you do a press junket and people appear on the screen one after the other every 5 minutes. And there was this woman that appeared and she said, so you've written this show about grief? And I said, yes. And she said, who died? I said, we've just met. I don't know if this is...
Yeah.
I think that grief, even though the literal grief in this is the death of a person, I feel as though it can also apply to all these forms of grief. The first season came out right after the pandemic, and there was like some collective grief we were all having about a loss of time. Like this, she died in a car accident. It's very similar, like this sense that something swept through and all of a sudden 2 years of your life were gone. Like what happened, making sense of that. I also, for example, was in a lovely 10-year relationship that ended, and a huge part of my relationship to that ending is in the show. There's a scene in season 1 where he finds a photo album that Tia has been keeping, and he gets to the middle of it and turns the page, and there's no more photos, and that's all they get. That happened to me in real life after she moved out of my house. I found a photo album that she had been keeping since our first date, and it went chronologically with like movie tickets and plane flights and all that. And I got, and it got to the middle of the photo album, which was like chronologically getting pretty close to when we had broken up. And then I turned the page and it was blank, and the rest of the album was blank. And I said out loud, and that's all we get. And I then wrote an email immediately to Brett and Bill and Neil and said like, yo, this just happened. Let's get an Emmy. Let's fucking get an Emmy. Let's get an Emmy, dogs.
True story.
Love it. And I'm sure she's credited as a producer, I'm sure.
I called her and told her.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. All right,
And her husband.
Love it.
Fucking go back.
To Brett, love your shows. You write workplace families so well. Ted Lasso and Shrinking. How do you do it? Also, hi, Jason. I love How I Met Your Mother.
Oh, hello.
Well, I do it in a workplace with lots of brilliant people. Like, I truly think that's part of it, is that you don't do any of this on your own. It does take a village. And I think we're both on Ted Lasso and on this. The writers on Shrinking, they're fucking brilliant. In the same way that this cast could all have their own show, all the writers could have their own show. Like, I'm sometimes feel embarrassed that we have these writers. Like, sometimes I feel like we're keeping really good people from. Sometimes I'm like, you should run free. Like,
that's how it works, though. The chain works that way. People are a writer on your show, and then they get their own show. And
but they're a really, 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 really good group of people.
Yeah.
And and I think that's it. It sort of reflects the environment is made in.
Yeah, that makes sense. What's the most surprising thing about working with Harrison Ford?
That's a great question. I'm going to answer earnestly, but you walk in intimidated. That there's going to be this guy who's just so much better than you. Maybe that says something about me, but like that's how I felt. Like, oh, this guy who's like above you. You're going to be working with him forever, and it's all going to be deference, And he's my friend. Like that, yeah. That's what happened there. Like that guy's my friend, and like we ask each other questions about a scene, and we respect each other and lean into each other, and I feel really honored. I feel really honored to work with Harrison at this moment in his career and to be a part of whatever shrinking means to him. It means the same thing to me.
I'm going to tell you a secret. Harrison Ford has told me that Jason Segel is the best actor he's worked with.
Just letting that land a little bit. One, this is a two-part. This has two questions. Is Harrison Ford as sexy in person as he is on camera?
Yes.
It's unreal.
100%.
Unbelievable.
Jesus. Oh my God.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Next question.
Yeah. Next question. Have y'all been in therapy, and if so, how did it impact the creation of the show?
I've done
Yes?
my share of therapy, yeah. And I do think that one of the things that therapists love about the show is that it is wish fulfillment. I think that they are sitting there, from the ones I've talked to, like, I know how to fucking handle this problem. Like, can I just tell them? Mm-hmm. And I think that's the beauty of the show. That's the fun of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this in episode 1, in the very first episode, comes from my therapist once yawned in my face, and I thought, that's bad. That's really bad.
I mean, those are complicated human relationships, right? I saw my therapist at Starbucks once.
Oh, no, it's really...
It was like I saw Bigfoot, seriously.
Yeah.
I felt like I saw Bigfoot. Yeah.
Did you say hello?
It's just wrong.
Did you speak to each other in Starbucks?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Ruined.
It was near his office, and I was about to have my appointment. And I was like, this is what he does before he talks to me. He goes to Starbucks. I just think of him like just sitting in his office.
Think of him in an Alfred's at least.
Anyway, what is your favorite part of producing together? The show is so funny and heartfelt. It feels like there is such a genuine, authentic cohesion with the cast. Well said.
I feel like Brett and I share a sensibility, and I feel incredibly safe knowing that Brett exists on our team. And we have an incredible team top to bottom, but there are moments where I'm like, I am feeling this thing, and the person I'm going to call is Brett. And that's a really, really amazing part of, I think, our partnership.
Oh, my God. I don't know what the question was, but the answer is this.
What were you thinking about?
I was thinking about... I'm going to say another nice thing about Jason. They say don't meet your heroes, don't they? Meet your fucking heroes. Jason Segel, who I was such a fan of, and when we had our very first Zoom, I had a Muppets poster behind me of his film, and I'd forgotten it was there because it was always there. And so it might have looked like I was going, hey, look what I put up, but it was genuinely there. And, not only is he incredible on the show and to work with, genuinely one of the best people on the planet. He's just a wonderful man. And at no point has been a dick, and you're like, he's the lead, he's got a lot of pressure, there's a lot to sort of manage and hold on to, and he's never once lost his temper, he's never once been even snappy, even gone like, yes, I've never even heard him go, yes, that'll do, you know what I mean? Like, he's really a very, very special man, and I am very lucky to be able to call him my friend.
Thanks, pal.
Good question. What percentage of the show, I never know how people feel, especially writers, about this question. What percentage of the show is improv and what percentage is sticking to the script? Love you both.
You answer that.
Sure. Very little of the show is actual improv in the style of improv like we did on the Judd Apatow movies or Forgetting Sarah Marshall, which is a lot of improv. Thank you. Those movies, the idea, just to show the difference, those movies, the idea was to write a very, very, very strong blueprint of a movie that if you were to just shoot that, it would be very, very good. But then to hire actors that were better than your writing and turn over some of the trust of the comedy to knowing that Paul Rudd or Jonah Hill are going to know how to make that part funnier than when you wrote it. So you kind of write, like in Forgetting Sarah Marshall, you write like funny waiter, and you write a few placeholder jokes that if you cast just like a regular actor could do and kill, but you know Jonah's going to come in and like do something, if he wants, entirely different because you're like, I hired Jonah for a reason. These scripts are actually so intricately tailored and so beautifully written that they are a perfect treasure map to get to the treasure at the end of the episode. Like, you just follow that map, you are set. The kind of improv I think we do on this show is a little bit more like once you're in there, once you're actually filming between action and cut, the treasure map has become three-dimensional. Right? Like you've studied it and you've gotten ready, but then all of a sudden you're on the adventure and you notice like Harrison's looking at you funny. And it would be a real missed opportunity not to suddenly be like, don't fucking look at me like that, Paul. Versus trying to like think of a funny joke, but don't look at me like that, Paul, turns into maybe an exchange that adds to the scene. So I'd say very little of it is improv, but all of the actors are super present. And I think that being present leads to some added funk.
Right.
Does that make sense?
That's a really good answer.
Thanks.
Yeah. As a writer working with such strong comedic actors, how do you let their own comedy styles shape the episodes?
Well, like I say, writing season 2, a lot of it, the joy of it is knowing the actors now and knowing their voices. And not only leaning into that, but also like kind of setting them challenges is quite fun because you know they're all so good. So like I say with Ted, like I say with Luke, there's like a thing we knew Michael could do. I don't want to, well, maybe I can spoil the format, where it was like we had this idea for Michael to kind of do a monologue that is like a 3-page monologue, but he has to do it in like 60 seconds.
I love it so much.
And you just know he's going to be, we haven't seen him do this, but I know he can do it, and it'll be really exciting, and it's amazing. And things like that where you sort of go like, give them, like a game show. Get through this.
Yeah. It's amazing how many people are really good on this show who we haven't even hardly talked about. You know, we haven't really talked about him. We haven't talked about Jessica Williams that much.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Another genius.
She's an absolute killer, and she is the closest to Paul Rudd that I have had as a scene partner, where I felt like no matter what I do, it is going to be met. And if the ship is going down, we're going down together. Like we're gonna ride this take into the ground. She's a giant brain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like it is working so fast and so on story. So my storylines with her are they feel electric when we go to do the scenes.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of Michael Urie is crushing it in Once Upon a Mattress. Mm-hmm. Would either of you like to do theater in New York, either writing a play or starring, comedic or dramatic?
I would love to do a play, but it would have to be a 6-week run because I worry that after that I'd lose my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Theater guy?
Do it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he is a really, He's a guy I'm always happy to see in anything.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of this cast, that's who they are. They're people who I'm just always happy when I see them in anything. We talked about Ted McGinley. We talked about, about all of these actors. And I think it's a tremendous accomplishment. And like I said, I could do my full 5 minutes on how much I love it, but I really love it and I appreciate it. And I appreciate you guys talking to me about it and being very
Thank you
patient
very
with
much.
No, you're
questions.
incredible. Thank
No,
you.
it's been great. Thank you very much. Thank you.